Hi, everyone. Okay. Well, great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here with us. I am Ashley Waxman. I lead brand marketing at CreatorIQ, and we are here to talk about all of the uncertainty happening in the market today. We saw earlier in the keynote, it's been 127 days into the year, but it feels like maybe 365 plus. So many forces shaping how consumers and businesses are responding today, and we're here to talk about that. I am here as a marketer, just like many of you, trying to make sense of it all and navigate that path. And I am so excited to be joined by Victor Graf from YouGov and Daniel Heifer from CreatorIQ, who are bringing the consumer perspective and the legal, finance, business perspective to the table here to help us as marketers really understand how to best drive our strategies forward internally and then best reach the consumer externally. So Victor, Daniel, thank you so much for being here. Victor, I'll start with you. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the perspective you're bringing to the conversation today?
Thank you, Ashley. Hello, everybody. I'm Victor Grass. I lead the commercial team at YouGov for the UK. I've been in market research for 15 years and the past 7 years at YouGov. For those of you that may not be as familiar with the company, we are a global research and analytics company. We own and operate a panel of 26 million people across 55 markets. So the angle I'll be shaping up and speaking about today is very much wearing the consumer hat. We are literally every single day out there engaging with our members and representing the general opinion of people through understanding what people think, feel, and do. And we help brand and agencies work on understanding key audiences, which we'll talk about today, and also measure brand performance.
Great.
Okay, my name is Daniel Heifer. I am the head of legal at CreatorIQ. I began my career just a few miles away from here at a corporate law firm called Freshfields. Spent the first part of my career, or the first half of my career in London. Moved to California, worked at various places. Just before CreatorIQ, I was at a startup that was trying to build the Hyperloop, the high-speed form of transportation, and then moved to CreatorIQ 3 years ago. I spend the majority of my time, or a lot of my time, dealing with the legal departments of our brands, our customers, dealing with their comments, questions, worries that they have about creator marketing as they review our contracts. So I see the process that a lot of you maybe go through when you're working on legal approvals, see how it can go well, how it can go badly, and that's kind of the perspective that I'll be bringing to the conversation today.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. So let's get started by just setting the stage here, literally, and understanding what's really driving this uncertainty. We know, of course, tariffs are top of mind for everyone. This is a very big factor, very timely factor, but we also know it's not the only thing that is happening right now, and in fact, it's a bit of a perfect storm of a lot of things changing all at once. So I'm curious, and we'll start with Victor. What do you see as the top 3 things that are driving uncertainty in the market right now?
Yeah, so I think the first one is the geopolitical landscape. I mean, we've seen it. It was mentioned during the keynote speaker. A lot of changes in government, whether it was in the U.S. and the U.K. last year, and most recently in other markets that have had kind of changes. That's leading to potentially different kind of regulations and rules that are put in place. I think the tariff obviously is kind of a manifestation of this change. So I think that's one that's definitely creating uncertainty in the world today, maybe more than other times. Another one is the kind of the rapidness of the digital transformation, whether it's the move to digital overall, the embracing of AI and how quickly that's going, or overall cyber attacks, which have been in recent news in the UK over the past few weeks.
I think for the top 3, I would say the first 2 are definitely tariffs and AI. For the third, I would say, and it's related to Victor's point, is sort of regulatory uncertainty. The approach to social media regulation is very different across different markets and different countries. So taking the UK as an example, later this year, it will become prohibited to advertise products with high fat, sugar, and salt content. And In Australia, social media is banned for 16-year-olds or under 16-year-olds. In France, influencers are not allowed to promote certain kind of wellness, alternative medicine products and finance products. So there is a kind of group of countries, and Canada is another one, which are more, their mindset is more towards regulation of social media. And then, of course, on the other side of the equation is the US, the new administration, which is much more about anti-censorship, free speech, and lack of regulation, or trying to not supervise social media in the same way. And so that divergence is likely to continue for the years ahead, because most of the governments in those countries have just been elected and are going to be around for a while. So they're going to continue to separate, and that makes it more complicated for brands and for creators to navigate the different environments. It's no longer going to be kind of realistic to have a one-size-fits-all approach to the legal and compliance side of creator marketing campaigns.
Yes, that's super interesting. It's incredibly complex. It's also, you mentioned, it's brands and creators, like our own communities are having to make sure that they understand this and that they are abiding by all of these changing regulations, as well as the brands that we all work at. I think it's so interesting too, because we think about tariffs, we think about rising costs of doing business and like where can we do more with less, but at the same time, both of you were talking about things that heighten the risk associated with just doing business alone. And so there's so much more risk out there that we need to be aware of, controlling, et cetera. So it's a lot to manage. And Daniel, building on what you were talking about, I think, you know, from the legal and finance side of the house, how do you see businesses starting to react, or like how do they respond to these kinds of uncertainties, changes, and risks that marketers should know about?
I think on that point, I was going through the different regulatory environments results in businesses having to have a more segmented approach to creator marketing campaigns. So again, if I'm a maker of a protein bar that is full of sugar and is going to fall foul of the high fat, salt and sugar regulations later this year in the UK, clearly I can't take the same approach in the UK as I would in the US or in other countries where that legislation doesn't apply. So creators and brands have to come up with campaigns and strategies that maybe in the UK you can still have a campaign, but you need to be careful not to be advertising the actual product. Maybe it's more about building a sort of brand affinity, driving consumers and users to other of your products or to your brand generally. But how you kind of navigate that and not end up being non-compliant with the rules does require, and this is not a lawyer trying to encourage more business for lawyers, but it does require more sort of careful review of the rules as different countries come up with their own legislation and regulation around these topics. On the creator side, there's a sort of re-emergence of the phenomenon that I think was seen during COVID, and I think somebody talked about on a previous panel, was the idea of influencers as educators. So during COVID, the audiences and the users who were following trusted creators were looking to them for guidance, maybe about how to, whether it's about vaccines or just lifestyle guidance as to how you navigate lockdowns and everything that was happening in a sort of crazy time. And there is that sort of trend has continued in the current environment with sort of economic uncertainty, economic stress, where creators are providing that kind of guidance to their audiences, which is a great opportunity, an opportunity to build trust and for brands to leverage that trust, but can also bring some risk with it.
Thank you. And then, Victor, where are you seeing this in terms of how consumers are responding to a lot of this uncertainty? And I know that you are bringing with you a lot of research. You're doing research all the time. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I know tariff got brought up a lot. We've been conducting research in the UK the past few weeks on how people feel about the tariffs. Very much right now, the awareness is high. People are, and I'm talking about the general population in the UK, very much aware and keeping in the news about what may be happening in terms of actual change and shift in shopping and consuming behavior. We aren't seeing that yet. I think people are monitoring what may be happening, and if there was to be some changes in prices of specific goods, there will be a drop, and some of the top items that come up from respondents is decreasing the number of non-essential goods and looking more for promotions. But again, it's a little bit of a touch and go situation, and people are kind of almost getting ready for what might be happening. Overall macro trends, what we're also seeing from the research we've been doing is there's a little bit of a holding back pattern from the general public overall in the UK, and I think that's representative as well of what's going on across Europe. Things like when we asked the question about the likeliness to change job in the next 12 months, it's at currently its lowest point than it has been in the past year. So people might be more hesitant to kind of go and do major life changes. And same thing goes for looking to rent or buy a property. Right now it's kind of at a low point versus the past year. So probably with all the uncertainty happening in the world, people are looking for stability in some of their, in kind of the way they're looking at the future. From a specific kind of category, we've seen the impact of luxury goods in China and what it has done for the economy there. Right now, based on kind of survey research that we've done, the percentage of people considering buying a luxury good in the next 12 months, it is also lower. So this is kind of a little bit of precursors and indicators of what may be happening rather than true behavior, but just something to kind of keep an eye on, that very much people are tuned in, aware, and kind of thinking about what may be happening and pivoting because the news is happening so fast, and who knows what might be announced tomorrow and that will change people's behavior.
Yeah, and I think to that point, it's a bit of a moving target. It's not so cut and dry that, okay, this is how consumers are feeling, and then this is how we will figure out our strategy. It's actually that your strategy needs to be very agile because consumers are changing their behavior every day because everything in the world is changing every day, right? Yeah. Thank you. I'm curious, when it comes to all of these things shaping the current environment, we talked about risk. What do you think, Daniel, from like the legal side of house, is the biggest risk for brands today, and what should we know about that?
I have a few. Am I limited to the biggest?
About the biggest risks.
Okay. I think the first one I would highlight would be the need for accuracy in creator marketing campaigns. So during times of economic stress, regulators are more protective of consumers because obviously they are looking out for consumers who are themselves under stress. Consumers are likely to be filing more complaints and lawsuits when there are uncertain economic times. And so there's much more attention on creators putting the correct kind of disclosures in their posts about paid campaigns, paid partnerships. Of course, the product details, the pricing all needs to be accurate. The place of origin of the product needs to be accurate. And you can imagine in a sort of time of tariffs, saying something is designed in London when it was actually made in China. This kind of thing is going to be a high focus, and that's a real example where fines have been issued for that kind of claim. So the need for accuracy is definitely a key one. It's not a risk necessarily as long as you manage it well enough. The next one I think I'd highlight is, and this is not to insult any creators, it's just they are small businesses, and like any small business in a time of economic stress will be looking to cut costs and manage things as efficiently as they can. That can lead to cutting some corners, maybe, in the way creators manage their own campaigns and their own content. So, you know, creators who potentially use music that they don't have the rights to use, or maybe are taking advantage of AI, as you know, as we all are talking about, and perhaps use somebody else's content through an inadvertent use of AI. In some way, creators, because they're trying to be efficient, trying to keep up in a difficult market where there are not as many brand partnerships available, the brands need to be careful in terms of their creative vetting to make sure those corners are not being cut. Another one I just quickly mention is when there are fewer brand deals, creators are relying on a smaller number of brands. That raises a risk that's always there with creator marketing, but is particularly magnified in a time of economic uncertainty, is the kind of classification of somebody as an employee versus a contractor. So this is the kind of Uber, Deliveroo, gig economy litigation that's very prevalent in other areas, but that can also affect creator marketing. If a creator is just working with one or two brands, that raises the risk of a potential claim of being an employee and entitled to various protections and rights that they wouldn't otherwise be. And then just the last one I'd mention is, in this particular time, is the sort of general concept of recession posting. A lot of creators are out there, of course, commenting on the current situation, the current environment, and looking to sort of publish and speak to their audiences on what's happening. That can draw more people into a sort of quasi-financial advisory role, and financial advice is a licensed activity. So some influencers and creators are licensed, and that's what they do. But this kind of environment does bring more creators into a sort of financial advice space, which, again, if they're doing that without a license and without necessarily the expertise in what they're talking to, that can also be something that brands need to carefully vet and also have contractual protections around. So those would be the main risks.
Thank you. We can always rely on the legal team to identify all of the risks. That was very thorough. Thank you, Daniel. Victor, from your perspective, biggest risk for brands today right now that we should know about?
Yeah, and I'll kind of jump on to what Daniel mentioned about AI and AI-generated content. I think one of the risks for brands is just not kind of keeping up to date on what's happening and how people are embracing it. There's obviously different opinion from the general public, and that's varies per country. But in Europe, there's a little bit of hesitancy and waiting for regulations and kind of more laws. Some of the stats we've seen is that people are they would like to see explicit mentions when something is created or used via AI. So that's some of the things to think about from a brand side, to really kind of keep up to date in terms of how the opinion of people and consumers are today and how that's going to shift to tomorrow. I think one thing that's interesting as well, kind of going back to the creator kind of topic, is we've asked our panelists, would they engage with an AI influencer? If there was one, and I know that's a kind of ongoing thing that's starting to kind of bubble up. There's a drastic difference between generations on kind of the embracing and acceptance of engaging with AI influencers. For the Gen Zs today, it's literally a third of people in the UK would be okay with that, and that drops significantly to millennials, and even more so with the older generation. So definitely a risk for brands, I think, is to not really be keeping in kind of up to date on what's happening, and understanding that there is a massive gap between the younger generation on everything around AI versus a little bit of the older crowd.
That's so interesting, and I know before we got up on stage, Victor, you were mentioning something about how today the generational divides are getting so much more, so much farther apart. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because that was such an interesting insight when we think about the consumer.
I mean, other things like consumers wanting to see brands having a political stand or a stand on social issues. Again, that's something that the younger generation are way more prone to and want to see. And it's literally, the stat is like 55% of Gen Zs agree with the statement, like, I want to see brands having a kind of political or a social stand on social issues, and that drops to 40% for the millennials and 30% for the Gen Z, the Generation X. So very much that divide is important for brands to kind of pay attention to. The same message may not be resonating as well with the younger generation as it would with the other generation. And that's just one angle, not even cutting it by other kind of key demographic elements. So I think, yeah, that's definitely one to look out for on the generation divide, which I'm sure brands are monitoring and keeping an eye on, but it's very drastic.
And sometimes you feel it when you call your parents on the weekend, right? You know, a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainty. There's also a lot of opportunity out there. So let's start with you, Victor. What is something that something that we can make out of all of this that is a big opportunity for brands today?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of room for capturing people's attention and kind of jumping on trends or things that are going viral. We monitor brand. We actually have a slide on this. We monitor thousands of brands across different metrics in the UK. And we looked at what Lindt has been able to do during the holiday period. Lindt in the UK always kind of performs and gets a lot of attention. So this is literally word of mouth of people talking about the brand in the past 2 weeks, based on kind of what they've seen and what the brand has been doing on kind of marketing activities. So for the holiday period, which is we looked at the December to end of February period, Lindt has had its highest word of mouth scores, and this is percentage of the general population this past year. They're literally ranking in the top 5 brands across the UK. And I came to London recently, 6 months ago, would not think of Lindt as necessarily the brand that's capturing the most attention and that's getting people to talk about it, but clearly they've done a good job there. So I think there's, and we've seen it with kind of making anecdotal comments, the Dubai chocolate trend. Lindt has been a brand, this is after the holiday season, where they jumped on kind of the trend and have launched the Dubai chocolate kind of product for the brand. So yeah, I think there's opportunities to kind of be nimble, move quickly, and obviously for the brand to stay true to themselves, but also jump on kind of trends that are happening.
Yeah, I think the operative word there is being nimble, and that is sounding like a very, very important thing right now with what is going on in the world, that the ability to move fast, the ability to make decisions quickly and execute quickly is essential. Daniel, from your perspective, on the opportunity side, what is a big opportunity for brands in terms of working with their legal departments when they're thinking about moving this agilely and this quickly? Because I know that there's often a lot of tension with marketers and legal teams, not with me, not with Daniel, but can you tell us a little bit about an opportunity there that people should know?
I like this framing of dealing with the legal department as an opportunity. I think the main recommendation I would make for like a marketer dealing with their legal department is to just remember kind of where their legal department is coming from in this process. The lawyers don't get credit when a business project goes well. If Apple releases an amazing new version of the iPhone, or Nike releases some amazing new running shoes that their customers love, the lawyers don't get a pat on the back saying, those terms and conditions that you wrote were amazing. It's, all the credit goes elsewhere. But of course, if that iPhone has some disastrous data breach and that it'll, data gets sent to some, everybody's contacts on their phone or whatever, or those running shoes infringe somebody else's IP because they have a design on them owned by somebody else, of course, the legal department is the one that gets the finger pointed at them. So I think just remember, the lawyers are sitting there worrying about all these risks and these things. I think that the department or the marketers that I have seen successfully navigate their legal departments are the ones who anticipate those worries and equip their legal departments with the information they need to kind of address them So whether they're worried about data privacy or whatever it is, they will get ahead of that, give that information to their legal department, and kind of facilitate the process proactively and get ahead of the game rather than just leaving it to the lawyers to do the worrying.
It's incredibly helpful, very actionable feedback and insight. Okay, we have a minute left. Rapid fire. What is the one most important thing from your perspective that a brand can do today in navigating the uncertainty in the world? Daniel, we'll start with you.
I think I would say try to avoid the paralysis that can come from a time of uncertainty. Kind of weigh the risks, look at how to address them, and then move forward and try to avoid that temptation to kind of wait for the next tariff announcement or wait for the uncertainty to pass, and instead just kind of do your best to assess the risk and then move forward.
And I would say kind of putting the customer first and really paying attention to, based on external factors, how the customer is changing with everything happening in the world.
Those are great. I think that one of the big things I take away from this is I think we all know that creator marketing is an incredibly agile and effective ROI positive channel, but it is so important to be community centered when you are thinking about investing more in creator marketing, because just like with your legal department, like making sure your creators know what's going on, that you are up to date on the types of risks that they are seeing, and including them in your strategy and embracing them as your community is incredibly important. That is our time, exactly. Wow. Thank you so much, Daniel and Victor. This was an incredibly insightful conversation, and thank you all for joining us today.